Welcome to episode 18 of the Active Bariatric Nutrition Podcast. I'm your host, Kim Terapelli. Today, I am excited to have one of my amazing clients, Lori Dustin, also known as Pipestone Lori on Instagram. Lori is living and loving life after bariatric surgery. She had the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass in December of 2021 at 60 years old. She has lost almost 100 pounds, 98.4 to be exact, from her highest weight. But that loss was not as important as all the gains. The ability to move is the biggest gain of all. Lori trains at Crossfit 3 times per week and has signed up for a 5K foam run the first weekend of June on Vancouver Island in Canada. Through therapy, her bariatric community, and the support of her family and friends, she is well on her way to her goal of living a great story. Thanks so much for joining me today, Lori.
Hi there. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. I'm so glad to have you on. I know we've talked about this, before today, getting you on here and sharing your journey. So I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So let's talk a little bit about why you decided to have bariatric surgery when you did, and talk to us a little bit about how it's changed your life.
Well, I've got a story, just like everybody has a story. Of course, at my age, I have a lot of chapters to my story, so I will try to keep it short. Back in 2021, I had my 60th birthday, which is a milestone birthday. And about a month before that, I had a friend pass away, and it was the third friend within a 12-month period. And these are friends that I was going to get around to seeing. It had been 3 or 4 years since I've seen them, and they were gone. Then I turned 60, and I stepped back and said, okay, something's got to give here. I wasn't happy. I was sort of sitting and spinning, and I just needed to make a change. And so I usually don't do things in a small way. So when I took the deep dive, I made a few different changes. I owned a business, and it's not a business that I wanted to own. So I decided that I was going to transfer that to my boys. And I was in a relationship that wasn't suiting me or doing me well. And so I ended the relationship. It was a 9-year relationship. And I decided that I needed to get rid of 100 pounds. And so I decided to have bariatric surgery. So that's sort of the short chapter. I mean, there's a lot of other things in there, but that's really why I decided to do that. And it's been a huge change for me. I'm 14 months post-op, and everything that I hoped would happen has happened. So I'm just really excited with the whole process and with the outcomes so far.
Good. Gosh, I love to hear that. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of times, and I heard this when I used to work in clinic, that, I'm 50 or I'm 55. I can't have bariatric surgery. And in your case, you said you were 60. And, I think that age just being a number, just like the pounds on the scale, and that just being a number, and not letting it define, what you wanted to do with your life. I mean, I think that's such a powerful message. And I'm so glad that you're on here to share that today.
Yep. Well, I would say, for me, turning 60 in my head, since that's the side of my brain that works, is that financial computing side. I'm like, all right, I'm going to live to be 90. I've lived 2/3 of my life. I have a third left. What am I going to do with that? And so that's really, what I'm looking at is, you make your own opportunities. And that's what I decided to do.
I love that. Well, let's talk a little bit about your fitness journey too, because another thing that I think you do that is so impressive is you go to CrossFit, which, I'm going to be honest, that's for a lot of folks, CrossFit sounds intimidating, or, that those type of HIIT workouts, maybe for some folks, they're like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Tell us a little bit about your fitness journey. Did you work out before you had surgery? Was that like part of your life?
So I always tried to work out. It's just, I wasn't always very successful at it. When I was 50, I decided I was going to run a 5K when I was 50. Okay. And so I went to Hawaii and I did the couch to 5K. And unfortunately or fortunately, I had to do it twice because it just didn't get there the first time. And I did run my first 5K. in my 50th year. It was a 5K and a 10K. I was the second to last over the finish line, and a lot of the 10K people finished before me, but I finished, so I was excited. And then I ended up moving back to my hometown to take over my family's business. And everything was very busy down here. My parents had health issues. They both ended up, within a few years, passing away within 18 months of each other. There was just a lot going on. But about 4 years ago, I saw an ad for our CrossFit gym, and they had a boot camp. And I thought, oh, okay, it's time to get started. I want to do this. So I did go to their boot camp at the CrossFit gym where I'm going right now, and fell in love with the community, but had some physical limitations, being 100 pounds more than what I am sitting right now, or not quite 100 pounds, but that's another story. And I had hip issues. My hip hurt. And so 2020, 2 days before they shut down for COVID, I had my right hip replaced. And after that happened, really with COVID and everything else, my whole fitness routine just was non-existent. But it was something that in the back of my mind, I always said that I wanted to get back to. And again, it was CrossFit, and we can talk more about that, but it's the community as much as it is the workout.
Yeah. The support. And I know you and I have talked about this when we've had our sessions together, that the coaches there are really great about helping modify the workouts, for any limitations that you might have.
Yep, that's correct. When I started the whole process and wanted to go back, I was, of course, I was just scared shitless, basically.
Sure. Yeah, I don't blame you. I know that's hard.
Oh my God, because here I am, 4 years older, but I was, I had started losing weight and had lost a significant amount of weight, and I felt like I could do it. So what I did is I went in with a personal trainer to the CrossFit gym. I didn't jump right into the classes. And my personal trainer, Amanda, was fabulous, and she understood what my hip issues were. And so I had weakness in my hip flexor and my glutes on my right side where I had my hip replaced. And it was just, lack of use, being afraid to use it. And I was not able to walk up and down stairs very easily when I first started CrossFit. So I spent, I think, 6 weeks personal training with her. And just as a little side, I also had her show me everything because I didn't want to be embarrassed when I first went back into CrossFit.
Sure. No, that's smart. That way you kind of know what the movements are.
Yeah, that's just how I am. And so between working with her 2 or 3 times a week, strengthening what I needed to strengthen, and her showing me what I needed to do once I was finished, then I made the jump, and I have a membership at the CrossFit gym.
That's awesome. I love how you kind of did that. So you didn't jump right into the 3 times a week that you're doing now. You worked with the personal trainer one-on-one. You were able to have more of a focused on what you specifically need. Then you were able to go, because I know when you and I started working together, I think you had just started going twice a week.
Yes.
Wasn't that right? When you went to the classes?
Yep.
Yeah. And you built up. Now tell us a little bit about what your fitness goals are, right now or moving forward. What when you rejoined CrossFit, what were you hoping to gain?
Basically muscle definition. And I've done the research, and I know even at my age, I can do, I can get muscle, and I can do muscle definition. As part of my bariatric journey, a lot of things for me was age related. And I thought, well, I won't ever get plastics because, I'm 60, I'm single, it's just, I just didn't, it wasn't something I was thinking of. Well, now that my body composition is changing, and the skin is sort of moving different places, and I'm starting to feel better about myself physically. Now I'm starting to think that there may be some plastics in my future. So
Excellent.
it's not going to happen. I want a full year of at least CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have had the conversation that I like CrossFit a lot, but I would like
Yeah.
to have some more muscle gain and muscle definition. And
Mm-hmm.
CrossFit is good for me because of that combination of cardio and lifting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give the CrossFit 6 months, and then I'll talk to the gym owner there and see if there's
Mm-hmm.
something different I can do to work on more of the weightlifting. And if not, then maybe a
Mm-hmm.
different program, because that's the
Sure.
part I really enjoy, which I think
Right.
a lot of people would agree.
Yeah.
And for me, doing weight bearing exercises is really important to keep my bone density. I take all my
Absolutely.
vitamins, I get on my tests to make sure my calcium and everything is where it needs to be. But that weightlifting piece is really important as I I don't know if I want to call it age, get older, whatever.
Yeah.
As I move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I love that you are looking towards, hey, I do want to gain more muscle definition.
Mhm.
And I think, in previous folks that I've had on here, everybody has to find what works for them in
Yes.
terms of what they enjoy. What are their goals? Do they want to be around more of a community? Are they more of a, hey, I'd rather just work out on my own or one-on-one with somebody? And I love that you're bringing to the table, when you started one-on-one, but you like the community, you knew the community,
Mhm.
before the surgery,
Yep.
then you had it, you wanted to go back into that supportive environment, which I think for a lot of folks can be helpful. And some people, might think that that's, oh, I don't want to be around other people when they're working
Mhm.
out. And some people like that. So I appreciate that you're sharing that. And you also, I wanted to say, when you had your surgery versus when you started going back to the gym, how long of time was that
Hmm.
before you started lifting again?
It was it was I wasn't quite a year, but I was
Yeah.
probably, because I started looking for a person like you to help me, and it had to be
Mm-hmm.
Octoberish. So I would say I was
Yeah.
9, 10 months out.
Yeah.
And before
Yeah.
that, I was walking. So I was
Yep.
participating in step bets. I was walking I have a membership at Planet Fitness, and I was doing Zumba on
Yeah. Oh,
different
that's
days.
awesome.
So a lot of
Yeah.
and I think in listening to your podcast, listening to a lot of people, cardio seems to be that initial thing that
Yeah.
we all
Yep.
do. And so that's
Yeah.
what I did. And then I moved into CrossFit.
Yeah. So let's talk then about your intake because, with a Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, it can be even a little bit more so challenging to fuel workouts, incorporating more carbohydrate rich foods around workouts and at meals and things.
Mhm.
When I've had other clients that have had the gastric bypass, it can be a little bit more challenging sometimes, in terms of what they can tolerate. How did you, when we first started together, and I'm not just saying in November, but even prior to that, did you start making some changes around like your walking or when you started going back? How were you feeling at that point?
I would say I've struggled with my nutrition almost right out of the gate. I felt like I didn't have enough information on
Sure.
macros, and again, that side of my brain, that's how I work. I'm a spreadsheet gal, and I like to see the numbers, and I like to understand what I'm doing. And um, so I was I use my Fitness Pal, and up until my
Yeah.
birthday last week, I think I had 410 days in a row that
Yes, you
I
did.
had, because it's data to me, and that's how I watch it. And I was hitting my protein goals. The other, I guess, issue I have is I don't cook. And so the combination
Sure.
of not cooking for myself and trying to figure out how to eat appropriately, especially to fuel so that I could move and
Right.
get out there. And so I struggled with that, through Berry Nation and some other dietitians. I was able to piece together some things and I got myself to 800 calories and, thought I was doing
Yep.
really well. And that was basically, it was protein more
Yep.
than anything. I
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't um, doing the carbs and fat. Fat, I always struggled to get the fat in. And you and I talked
Right.
about that because from a diet perspective, I'm from an age where low fat was the diet that I was, back in the day when I was in my 30s or whatever, that's what it was. It was Snackwells and fat was taken out of
Yep.
everything. And I laugh because we talked about too with Rob that you've had on here. Rob's always like, I never have enough, I need more for my fats. And me, I'm like, you can have
Right.
some of mine because I never get mine.
Right.
But
Right.
I think
Right.
it's just, it just shows sort of a change through the ages as we figure out diet wise, nutrition wise, as the science rolls along. When we know
Yeah.
better, we do better. And
Sure.
that's important. And so now I still struggle because I gave up everything that had fat in it. I don't use
Right.
butter, I don't use creamer, I don't, everything.
Yeah.
So I've struggled with my nutrition, until you and I got together and really took a dive into it, and you understood what my plan was, and um, my restriction is very,
Yeah.
very much there. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's another piece of the puzzle. It's not only here, you need to just eat some more. It's like, oh, I'd love to eat
Right.
some more, but I can't.
Sure. Yeah. Can't do it. Sorry. Not that easy.
Yeah.
No, I know. And I think that's a common struggle is, sure, we could all say, like, yeah, you definitely need to have more calories. You want to
Mhm.
gain muscle. But just like we've talked about, and I know I've said this previously, you can't just do it when you're a bariatric,
Mhm.
athlete or someone that's trying to move more. You can't do it. So it makes it more challenging where we have to either eat more frequently or we have to focus in on where are we going to strategize with these carbohydrates that we have to get in? Do we just focus pre and post? I mean, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I know that you and I have really, worked through that
Yeah.
because when you and I started, I was looking back at your MyFitnessPal. Again, you're so dedicated to your journaling. But again, it was such great data. It was so helpful.
Yeah.
But you were about 900 or so, 900, 1,000. And I remember when we started, you were drinking less than 64 ounces a
Yes.
day of fluids and you were
Woo.
just really feeling tired. I think
Yes.
you told me you felt like you were in kind of like a daze or,
Yep.
a brain fog, I think is what you'd
Mhm.
said. Am I remembering
Yes.
that correctly?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
How did you feel in the workouts when you were working out at that amount? How were you feeling?
I was thinking about that because I worked out tonight on the way home. I just now that I'm fueling correctly, I'm so much more engaged in my workout. I'm not just trying to get through it and get it done. I'm actually thinking about my form and thinking about. So I had a PR today because,
Oh, great.
yeah, I did on my deadlift,
Woo.
65 pounds. So I was excited about
Awesome.
it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's the difference. It's being present and and I don't know how else to explain it. And it's
Yeah.
just between getting my hydration in and
Yeah.
also, the nutrition that I need. And it's like night and day, really.
Yeah. I was I was looking at our notes from our last session together, and I had even said in there, continue doing your 80 to 90 ounces, per day. Like you're easily doing that now. And I remember in the beginning, you were like, I really struggle with this.
Mhm.
And can you tell us how did you increase your fluids? I am just, if you don't mind, I know it's not on our question list, but how did you get that in? I'm
So
throwing you for a loop. I'm sorry.
no, 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 no. I can answer on the fly.
Yeah.
A couple different things. So I've read Atomic Habits, and I know that having my water needs to be a habit. So I love my coffee in the morning. So before
Yeah.
I can have my cup of coffee, I have to have 20 ounces of water in the morning. Period.
Love that.
I can't even turn the coffee machine on until that water is gone. And then I'm
Love that.
also using flavorings. So just different sugar-free flavorings are helpful
Sure.
to me. and I count my coffee as my part of my
Yep.
fluid
That's
because I make it
liquid.
with water. It's just bean water. So
Yeah.
that's what I call it.
Yeah.
And then on the nights that I work out on my drive home, I drink 20 ounces of water on my drive home so that I'm rehydrating. Um,
Right.
the hardest thing for me, and we've talked about that, is I'm 14 months out and I still don't have my hunger hormones back. So I have to plan my eating and time my eating because being hungry isn't a part of my life again yet. Hopefully, it
Right.
won't be for a
Right.
while. I actually enjoy not feeling hungry, but it is a problem when you're trying to fuel and eat what you need to eat.
Yeah.
Because as you and I've
Absolutely.
talked, there's been a time probably a couple weeks ago when the day got away from me and I had to go exercise and I was like, holy crap, I've not eaten what I'm supposed to
Right.
eat. And I
Yeah.
felt like crap too at
Mm-hmm.
my,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so it makes a
Yeah,
difference.
now that you've been practicing, eating
Yes.
on, you've been eating on a more consistent schedule, you're
Yep.
very diligent, and we're going to talk about that, your pre and your post workout,
Yep.
fueling, you've been timing everything. You can notice a difference now
Yep.
because you know how it feels when you do feel good. And like today, you're having a PR because you're more mindful as you're working out, you have
Mm-hmm.
the energy, you're able to pay attention. You're not just like, oh God, let this be over.
Yes.
You can actually really focus. And I love to hear that because that's yeah, I think, we always talk about, progress, not perfection, and that consistency of going.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe every workout's not awesome, but if over time you're consistent with going, you're consistent with your fueling, and you're eating enough to be able to go in and push yourself, you're going to be able to see those
Mm-hmm.
PRs because all those previous times where you went in there and you did the work, that adds up
Yeah.
and it's giving you those results. I love that.
Yeah.
I was just going to say too real quick, Lori, so when we started, like I said, you were around the 900, 1,000, I think, and then our first goal together was to just try to get to 1,200.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you listening, I know you might be thinking, oh, if I work with Kim, she's going to put me on some really high amount. No, remember, we talk all the time about small, realistic steps up that are attainable. Because I remember when we set it at 12, you were like, oh man, this is going to be,
How am I going to
remember,
do
it was
that?
going to be challenging. Yeah. And we set it for 110 to 120 grams of protein in a day, 90 to 100 grams of carbohydrate in a day, 40 to 50 grams of fat per day. And the goal was also just try to increase more fluids.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about how that felt on that first step up. How did that go?
It took me, I think, 2 weeks
Yeah.
to get there. And it was just little incremental things. And I actually pushed myself a little bit. So, I increased the amount of food I was eating at the time just a little bit, just to add enough. And I got through it and was able to sort of get used to that piece of it. I also started eating more often. So,
Mm-hmm.
and, hitting the protein goals, even now, I know we're going to talk about the next level I went up to. I still use
Yeah.
protein bars and protein drinks because for
Mm-hmm.
me, I am more concerned right now because of working out and what I want to do from a muscle perspective of making sure I
Mm-hmm.
hit my macros. And because
Yeah.
my tiny tummy doesn't want to allow me all the time to do that, it does fine with protein drinks and some protein. So it's not my main course, but I
Right.
definitely, at 14 months post-op, I still use it because it helps me hit my macros.
Right. Right. And I know when we talked again in December, our next goal was to focus on this pre and post workout
Mm-hmm.
nutrition. Tell us a little bit about your timing, if you don't mind, because
Sure.
as we just talked about, we increased. And so one of the ways that we were able to get in a little more calories was we added in a pre workout snacker. We made sure that
Mm-hmm.
we're getting that in, in the hour or so before, hour and a half or so.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about your schedule in a day.
So right now I'm going to CrossFit Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and the class is at 4:30. And so on my little mind spreadsheet, I had to back it up.
Yeah.
And so about 2:30, I will have 20 ounces of something. And sometimes I throw an electrolyte type drink in there with it or mix
Mm-hmm.
into it. But I have 20 ounces at least of water about 2:30. At
Mm-hmm.
3:30, I will eat something. I use a Larabar which is plant-based. Okay. It's higher in carbs and it's small, so it sits well in my tummy. Or I will have a Greek yogurt. So one of those two things, 3:30, an hour before I go work out. And as long as I am, and the other thing I do on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, my breakfast is usually a protein oatmeal.
Okay.
So instead of just being heavy protein, my carbs are a little bit higher earlier in the day. And I've just found that having that protein, throwing a scoop of protein in my oatmeal, and maybe some nuts or raisins because I need the fats.
Yeah, right. Talked about nuts, chia seeds, that kind of stuff. It's a great addition. Yeah.
Seeds, and just different things in the oatmeal. And that's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, so that I feel like I'm getting a little bit more of a carb load on those days. And I save my protein for when I get home after I work out. And then that's the other thing. When I get home, it's usually 5:30, 5:45, and then I'll have my meal. And the meal is right now, it's protein and some carb of some type. And then my snack every night is usually a Greek yogurt with some granola in it. And that's it just works really well for me. And I feel good. And I get up the next morning and I'm like, why am I so happy? Why do I feel so good? And it has to be the nutrition. I mean, it's the working out also, but the nutrition, eating what I need to be eating is really making a difference in my life.
Yeah. And it's funny. I'm glad that you mentioned that. I remember us talking about that when you were like, I sleep so much better and I wake up and I'm actually like refreshed. And I remember that was like a big deal for you. And I remember us talking about that in one of our sessions. And I was like, that's awesome because gosh, I don't know about you, but there's so many of us and myself included. I sometimes, if I didn't eat well, I had to work and I just go to bed. I feel like garbage, like don't even sleep good. You just wake up. You're like, oh, did I even sleep last night? Like, it's frustrating. It's a cycle. It just goes over and over. No, I'd love to hear that. Yeah. So let's talk then our next increase then, because so you would come back and you're like, I really want to be gaining a little bit more muscle. And how do we do that? And so we decided to give it a little bit of a stretch goal of maybe trying to go to 1,400 calories. And we just increased the protein a little bit more, 130 to 140 grams a day. And I really didn't adjust the carbs too much. 105 to 115 grams per day was our goal. And the fat 50 to 60 grams and kept the fluids 80 to 90. How did you feel with that so far? Let's talk about it.
I am still working on that.
Yes.
So, and you and I have talked about it. So I'm working really hard to meet those goals. And, it's funny because the last time we talked, not only did you talk to me about the macros and meeting those goals, as you said, if I want to get more muscle, that I've got to lift heavier. And so you were in my head today when I was putting those weights on my bar and I'm thinking, can I do this? Yes, I've got to lift heavier or I'm not going to build my muscle.
You got it. Oh,
yeah, because, I did the body scan after 8 weeks. And you and I took a look at that and I had a 1.5% body fat loss, but I didn't have the muscle gain that I wanted to have. Yeah. So my weight has stayed about even with increasing my calories. And of course, in the back of my head, there's always that diet fear, oh my God, I'm going to gain weight. I haven't. And I'm, and I'm still struggling to get up to the 1,400 and I need that to be able to, or my body's not going to want to build the muscle.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I would just say too, when I was looking at your scan right before we came on today, because I wanted to remind myself the numbers, I remember thinking, even though you didn't gain a significant amount of muscle, you still maintained the muscle and you lost body fat. Yes. So actually that's still a good indication that we're doing good with our protein. You're doing a nice job eating your protein because you're maintaining muscle, even though you lost some body fat through, of course, where we are at with calories, what you're doing for your workouts. You're obviously challenging yourself in the workouts. And so as you and I talked last time, we were saying, with more gaining muscle, it might take a little bit more calories in your case. And again, we just did a very conservative, 200 calorie bump. We didn't try to bump 500, 600, 700 calories because it's a struggle just to get where you are, like we said, and this is common with bariatric clients is that you can't just jump up 6, 7, 800 at a time. It's hard,
It is.
and you don't feel great.
Yeah.
So, but I want to commend you because you still are seeing good results. You're still reducing your body fat, which is outstanding. And I want to attribute that to your workouts are excellent and you are being mindful about your nutrition. Do you feel like in terms of moving forward, I know you've been pushing yourself in your workouts, but you're still feeling like the fueling is helping the workouts. You're feeling good in the workouts.
Yeah, I think so. I think just
good.
being in my routine and adding those carbs in, it just, and being hydrated,
right?
Seems to make a difference.
Look at that.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Dang it.
Science is just a wonderful thing.
I know. Gosh. Oh. We all have to, it's so funny because I mean, I do it myself. I don't drink enough fluids throughout the day. And you don't think like, gosh, I'm tired today. No, if you think about it, a lot of times it can just be you're dehydrated and we don't even know it, So focusing on that, I think has been such a great thing for you. Tell us a little bit about your mindset shifts that you've experienced around exercise, nutrition over this journey, in this last year. Tell us a little bit about it.
Oh my gosh, there's been so many mindset changes. I think the biggest thing for me as I've gone through this journey and I've started exercising and I feel good is finally believing that my age is just data. So, I've known all along that the number on the scale is just data and it doesn't define me. But I've really struggled with my age and letting that define me and using it as a limited belief, keeping me from doing things. So I think through the surgery and through eating right and through the exercise that I'm finally at the point where it doesn't matter. My age is a data point and I can do whatever I want to do. And I'm going to do whatever I want to do, and I'm excited to do whatever I want to do. Now, if I could just figure out what I want to do.
That's the last key piece.
That's that whole, what do I want to be when I grow up? But
that's right.
But 2023, I'm really excited for 2023. And so my mindset is basically, like I said in the beginning, you create your own opportunities, and I'm trying to create just multiple opportunities. And I have a passion now for bariatrics and for exercise, and I try to talk to as many people as I can talk to about it, and share the knowledge that I've been given and what I've learned through Bari Nation and different discussions. And it's just, I'm just happy. It's so good to be happy. So it's a nice place to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Oh, I love to hear that. And do you have any advice for someone who may be pondering whether to have surgery, later in life? I hate to say that, but you know what I mean, because I always, you know what I mean? Because I get that. I mean, honestly, when I worked in the clinic all these years, I remember people coming in, they were 50 and they were like, am I too old? And I'm like, are you? No. 60. Am I too old? No. What do you think when someone, says to you like, oh, I'm too old for that? What do you think?
I am... You're not too old. You're never too old. And I have, like we said in the beginning with my story, I have a lot of chapters. I have a lot of starting over. I've started over multiple times, and I'm going to keep starting over if I don't like where I'm at and move forward. And I don't care how old I am. I would just tell people to go for it, because when I went for it at 60, was different for me than some of the other people that I see that struggle a little bit, is I don't have small children. I don't have a significant other. And so I sort of get to set my own, daily pace, and I get to eat what I want to eat. And so there is some benefits to being sort of further out in your life and, having some of that, young children and children in sports. And I mean, you understand, you're busy. You've got kids that are involved in sports and things that are going on. And for me, that part of my life is sort of, that's all settled. My boys are in their 30s, fully functional on their own. And so being older is not a bad thing when you're going to make a huge change in your life, because I don't know. I think being more relaxed about it, I don't know. I would just say go for it. I don't think any age is too young. And we didn't even talk about the fact that, I'm no longer on my diabetic medicine. I'm no longer on the Prilosec. I had just terrible, terrible acid reflux. I had to get, tested for Barrett syndrome every year. I had to have a scope to have tests for that, and scar tissue. And I was miserable. I couldn't eat a lot of different foods, and all of that's gone. It's done. I'm down to one medication, and that medication is because I have tremors, and tremors are something that weight loss surgery is not going to cure or do anything for. But all of my other comorbidities, I'm good.
I love that. Yeah.
My cholesterol, my everything. So
yeah, remember your last lab panel? What a significant improvement in your lipids.
Yes.
I mean, all those things. Yeah.
So, being older and getting this surgery, you add 10 years to your life. So maybe I'll live to 100 instead of 90, since 90 is sort of my goal.
That's
right. So we'll see.
No, but you know what I like that I'm hearing you is that every phase of life has its challenges. It has their, pros and cons. And when you're earlier in life, you've got, maybe the weight of your kids and having younger kids, like you said, and more shuffling schedules and having it, maybe later on, do you have, maybe less of those things, but other things to consider. I mean, I think there's pros and cons, certainly. And it sounds like though, for you, it worked out really well in terms of the timing.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure, I think back, and would it have been nice to been at a lower weight when my kids were smaller? And so it definitely, we talk a lot about it happens. It seems like it happens for everybody at the right time, because you can always say, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? But you did it. So be happy and move forward. And it's great.
Yeah. Use that tool when you have it. Absolutely. Yes. No, I love that. So can you tell us what's maybe one thing you've learned on this post-bariatric journey that you'd like to share?
I think we talked about it already. It's the biggest thing I've learned is that my age does not define me. And I think that's my biggest takeaway. Again, I've learned a lot about how I got to the place that I got to with emotional eating and just different things in my life that have gone on that got me to where I needed to do the bariatric surgery. But I think, if anybody, for me, it's age. Age is just data.
That's right.
I turned 62 last week, and it was one of my best birthdays that I've ever had. I was excited.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. I'm in my 63rd year of life, and it's like it's going to be the best year. So I'm excited to see a year from now. I want to wear one of those sports bras and see the definition in the back of my shoulders.
Yes.
That's one of my goals.
I love it. Okay. That's our goal. We're coming back in a year. We're doing this.
All right. I will turn around.
We're going to talk about it again.
Show you.
Here it is.
Yep.
I love it. Yep. Oh, well, can you tell everybody, where can they contact you on Instagram? Do you mind sharing where people can contact you? Questions?
I don't have a bariatric handle because of the business I ran was named Pipestone. So it's at Pipestone Lori on Instagram. If for some reason you're a Facebook person, I do have a Facebook page, and that's just Lori Dustin out there. And but that's how I can be reached. And if anybody has any questions about how I feel as an older person exercising and going through bariatrics, I'm here for you. Just jump in my DMs. I will answer anything, and I will be your biggest cheerleader if you're considering it and wondering about it. And it's been the best thing for my life.
Oh. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I'll put your contact information in the show notes. That way people can just click on it and they can find you easily. And just thank you so much for your time today. I know you and I have talked about having you on for a little while, and I'm so glad you came on. And just
fun.
And we had fun, and and just get to chat. And but your experiences, I think, are they're just so helpful, because it, like you said, age is just a data point. It doesn't matter. It's, you want to use this tool and you want to have the surgery, by God, do it. Right? And absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. And a fellow Midwesterner to boot. You know, I love my fellow Midwesterners.
And I'm a Bears fan, so we got that in common. We just need to get them back in working order.
Right. Our lovable losers. Yep. We're back on that. Dang it. Yep. All right. Well, thank you again for joining me today. I just am so honored that you came on. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Well, and I appreciate you and all the help that you've given me. So I would definitely recommend, having you take a look if anybody's interested in figuring out what they need to do, no matter what stage they're at. So.
Right.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no problem. So if you want to watch the full episode of this podcast, you can go onto my YouTube channel, which is the Active Bariatric Nutrition channel, and you can subscribe to it. That way you'll know when we upload a new video. And in addition, if you don't mind sharing this podcast with any friends or family that you think would benefit from the information, I would so appreciate it. Even if you could give it a rating and a review, that gets it in front of more people. I really appreciate that. You can also follow me on Instagram at Active Bariatric, as well as my TikTok and Facebook pages. And if you'd like to learn more about my one-to-one bariatric nutrition coaching services, please go to my website, www.activebariatricnutrition.com, and schedule a discovery call so we can learn more about each other. Thanks again for tuning in this week. I appreciate it, everybody, and we will do this again next week. Take care. Thanks, Lori.
Bye. Thanks.